Welcome to a chilling exploration of the lives of former CIA agents who, once dedicated to safeguarding their nation's secrets, have now found themselves on the wrong side of the law. In this video, we'll delve into the astonishing and often insane reactions of these fallen operatives as they come to terms with life behind bars. From shocking espionage cases to intricate webs of betrayal, you'll witness the dramatic stories of these once respected intelligence officers as they face the harsh reality of serving prison sentences for their crimes. Aldrich Ames. Aldrich Hazen. Rick Ames was a former CIA counterintelligence officer whose name became synonymous with betrayal and espionage. Born on May 26, 1941 in River Falls, Wisconsin, Ames came from a family connected to the intelligence community. His father, Carlton Cecil Ames, worked for the CIA's Directorate of Operations in Virginia, which would later significantly influence Aldrich's career path. Ames spent his early years in various locations due to his father's postings, including Southeast Asia. However, his father's struggles with alcoholism and a particularly negative performance appraisal during his CIA career led to the family's eventual return to CIA headquarters. Despite his family's challenges, Ames attended McLean High School in McLean, Virginia. His journey into espionage began in 1957 when, at 16, he worked for the CIA during the summers as a low-ranking GS-3 records analyst. His responsibilities included marking classified documents for filing and providing him with early exposure to the inner workings of the intelligence community. Ames's academic pursuits initially led him to the University of Chicago in 1959, where he intended to study foreign cultures and history. However, his lifelong passion for drama and the performing arts began to overshadow his academic commitments, resulting in failing grades and his eventual withdrawal from the university during his sophomore year. Following his departure from the University of Chicago, Ames briefly worked as an assistant technical director at a Chicago theater until February 1962. He then returned to the Washington area, where he resumed employment at the CIA, primarily performing clerical tasks similar to those he had undertaken in high school. During this time, Ames's life took a fateful turn as he became increasingly disillusioned with his career and began to contemplate espionage. Ames's actions would later make him one of the most notorious spies in American history. He began spying for the Soviet Union in the 1980s and continued for over a decade. His betrayal compromised numerous CIA assets and resulted in the loss of valuable intelligence, making him one of the most damaging spies in U.S. history. In 1994, Ames's espionage activities were exposed and he was arrested. He was subsequently convicted of espionage on behalf of the Soviet Union and Russia. Ames received a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and he was incarcerated at the Federal Correctional Institution in Terre Haute, Indiana. Aldrich Ames's story is a cautionary tale of a man who turned against his own country and colleagues, causing significant harm to U.S. national security. His actions are a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and counterintelligence efforts within the intelligence community. Despite initially not envisioning a long-term career with the agency, Ames' ambition and rising performance propelled him forward. He attained the rank of GS-7, an entry-level professional grade. He secured a place in the prestigious career trainee program. Despite several run-ins with the law due to alcohol-related incidents, Ames's turning point occurred when he was assigned to Ankara, Turkey. Tasked with targeting Soviet intelligence officers for recruitment, Ames struggled to succeed and received only a satisfactory performance rating. This disappointment and his growing disillusionment led him to contemplate leaving the agency. However, Ames's life took a dramatic turn when he initiated an affair with Maria del Rosario Casas Dupuy, a cultural attaché at the Colombian embassy. This relationship would have far-reaching consequences, including a violation of CIA regulations that prohibited officers from engaging in romantic relationships with foreign nationals. Ames's espionage activities began in earnest in 1985 when he initiated contact with the Soviet embassy. He offered information he initially deemed valueless to establish his credibility as a CIA insider. With an audacious request for $50,000, the Soviets quickly obliged. What started as a desperate financial move soon became a full-fledged betrayal of his country. Ames identified and exposed more than 10 top-level CIA and FBI sources reporting on Soviet activities, believing that betraying these assets would both enrich him and reduce the risk of his own espionage being discovered. His actions triggered the disappearance of the CIA's network of Soviet bloc agents, severely compromising U.S. intelligence operations. The CIA's efforts to uncover the mole responsible for the disastrous loss of assets were marked by frustration and complexity. The agency assembled a dedicated mole hunt team led by Paul Redmond, along with Jean Verdefuy, Sandra Grimes, Diana Worthen, and Dan Payne. Identifying Ames as the culprit proved challenging, despite colleagues noticing his striking transformation. He went from a frugal and modest appearance to one marked by cosmetic dentistry, tailor-made suits, a luxurious home in Arlington, Virginia, and an extravagant Jaguar. Despite the mounting evidence, Ames managed to pass polygraph examinations, in part due to the overly friendly demeanor of the examiners. Ames's espionage activities cast a long shadow over U.S. national security. The loss of numerous CIA assets and critical intelligence dealt a severe blow to American intelligence efforts. The CIA had to undertake a comprehensive review of its counterintelligence procedures and security measures to prevent future betrayals. The case underscored the importance of vigilance within the intelligence community and the enduring impact of espionage on the nation's security. In March 1993, the CIA and FBI launched a comprehensive investigation into Ames, recognizing the grave threat his espionage posed to national security. This investigation included a range of surveillance and intelligence-gathering tactics, such as electronic surveillance, monitoring his movements through a car tracker, and even sifting through his trash. For nearly a year, from November 1993 until his arrest, Ames lived under virtually constant physical surveillance. Ames had been scheduled to attend a conference in Moscow in early 1994, but as the FBI believed they could wait no longer, they decided to act swiftly. On February 21, 1994, Aldrich Ames and his wife were arrested. At the moment of his arrest, Ames reportedly exclaimed, "You're making a big mistake. You must have the wrong man." This arrest marked the culmination of years of covert betrayal and espionage activities that had deeply compromised U.S. intelligence operations. The legal proceedings against Ames and his wife commenced swiftly. On February 22, 1994, just a day after their arrest, they were formally charged by the Department of Justice with spying for both the Soviet Union and Russia. Ames's legal battle, however, was short-lived. On April 28, 1994, he pleaded guilty to the espionage charges. As part of a plea bargain, his wife received a 5-year prison sentence for tax evasion and conspiracy to commit espionage. During the court proceedings, Ames made shocking admissions. He confessed to compromising virtually all Soviet agents of the CIA and other American and foreign services known to me. He revealed that he had provided the USSR and Russia with a huge quantity of information on United States foreign, defense, and security policies. The extent of his betrayal was staggering, with estimates suggesting that his actions led to the compromise of at least 100 American intelligence operations and the execution of at least 10 sources. Ames's revelations had severe consequences for U.S. intelligence and the credibility of the CIA. Following his guilty plea, Aldrich Ames was sentenced to life imprisonment. He became Federal Bureau of Prisons prisoner #4087083, serving his sentence in the Medium Security Federal Correctional Institution, FCI, in Terre Haute, Indiana. His espionage activities ended his career and ensured he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The arrest and subsequent revelations of Ames's espionage activities prompted significant criticism of the CIA's handling of the case. Many questioned why Ames's conspicuous increase in the standard of living hadn't raised alarms earlier. The agency faced scrutiny and public outcry, leading to the resignation of CIA Director James Woolsey under pressure. Ames's attorney, Plato Kacharis, had even threatened legal action regarding the legality of FBI searches and seizures in Ames's home and office without conventional search warrants. This threat played a role in Congress passing new legislation to address such matters through the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Edward Lee Howard. In the annals of Cold War espionage, the tale of Edward Lee Howard unfolds like a gripping thriller filled with twists and turns that would ultimately rock the intelligence world. Once upon a time in the early 1970s, Howard embarked on an adventure as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Colombian city of Bucaramanga. There he met Mary Cedarleaf, and their love story soon led to marriage in the picturesque St. Paul, Minnesota. A promising future awaited them, and Edward Howard's ambitions knew no bounds. In 1976, Edward earned a coveted master's degree in business administration from the American University in Washington, D.C. His pursuit of knowledge led him to a career with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. The couple's life took an international turn when, in February 1977, they set off for Lima, Peru, where Edward worked on loan projects for USAID. It was a life of adventure, and they embraced it wholeheartedly. Returning to the United States after their Peruvian sojourn, Edward Howard transitioned into the world of environmental work in Chicago Chicago, seemingly a far cry from espionage. But life had other plans. In 1980, a dramatic twist unfolded. Edward and Mary Howard were recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Both underwent rigorous training in intelligence and counterintelligence methods. Their world was about to be turned upside down. However, just as their careers were poised to take off, a shadow fell over Edward's CIA journey. A routine polygraph test unearthed a troubling revelation. He had lied about past drug use. In 1983, the CIA abruptly severed ties with Edward Lee Howard, just days before he was scheduled to report to the CIA's Moscow station. Bitter and disheartened, Howard found solace in alcohol, drowning his sorrows and nursing a festering grudge against the CIA. His life took a dark turn as he made cryptic phone calls to former colleagues, both in Washington and Moscow. In February 1984, a drunken brawl led to his arrest and charges of assault with a deadly weapon. It was during this turbulent period that Edward Howard's life took a fateful turn. He began clandestinely providing classified information to the KGB, possibly establishing contact with KGB officers during a visit to Austria in 1984. His actions would have far-reaching consequences. In 1985, the CIA faced a grave crisis as several security leaks exposed officers and critical assets. The situation escalated when Vitaly Yurchenko, a KGB officer, defected to the United States on August 1, 1985. During intensive interrogations by the CIA, Yurchenko dropped a bombshell, accusations against Edward Lee Howard, as well as another officer, Ronald Pelton, of working for the KGB. But Yurchenko's defection was enigmatic. In November of the same year, he bafflingly redefected back to the Soviet Union. Some whispered that Yurchenko might have been a double agent, intentionally misleading the CIA to protect one of the Soviet Union's most valuable CIA double agents, Aldrich Ames. Edward Lee Howard's life, marked by a tumultuous journey from the Peace Corps to CIA recruitment, dismissal, and eventual espionage, would leave an indelible mark on the world of intelligence. His actions had profound implications for U.S. national security, and his story serves as a haunting reminder of the complex and treacherous world of espionage during the Cold War. Reports of Howard's demise on July 12th were confirmed by the State Department, but the details surrounding his death are far from clear. The Washington Post reported that he died from a broken neck in what was described as an accident at his dacha. However, an unnamed Russian foreign intelligence officer who claimed to know Howard denied this version of events without offering further clarification. Even Vladimir A. Kryuchkov, the former KGB chief, acknowledged Howard's death, but chose to keep additional information under wraps. While Howard admitted to some contact with the KGB, he contended that he was not a full-fledged informant. In Russia, he led a relatively quiet life, living in Moscow with occasional visits from his wife and son Lee, who was born in March 1983. Despite his importance in Soviet eyes, Howard's espionage efforts appeared to be overshadowed by those of Aldrich H. Ames, who was arrested in 1994 for espionage and for revealing the identities of numerous American spies to the Soviets. William Campiles. The case of William Peter Campiles is a fascinating and intriguing tale of espionage and betrayal during the Cold War era. Campiles, a former employee of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, found himself at the center of a high-stakes spy operation that led to his arrest, conviction, and imprisonment. William Campiles, born to Greek parents and raised in Hegewisch, Chicago, had a modest upbringing. He financed his college education through a combination of state grants, part-time work, and his mother's earnings from a job at a Ford factory cafeteria. In 1977, while attending Indiana University, Campiles was recruited by the CIA, where he began working in a rather mundane role, handling message traffic. However, he soon grew dissatisfied with his job, finding it boring. Campiles' dissatisfaction with his CIA job led him down a treacherous path. He decided to steal a top-secret KH-11 spy satellite manual from CIA headquarters in 1977, with the aim of selling it for financial gain. This daring theft marked the beginning of his espionage career. Campiles harbored aspirations of becoming a double agent, hoping to work for both the CIA and the Soviets. In a shocking turn of events, Campiles traveled to Athens, Greece in January 1978 during an unusual winter visit and approached the Soviet embassy. He offered to sell the stolen KH-11 manual to Soviet KGB agents. His audacious move caught the attention of the Soviets, who provided him with $3,000 in cash, a camera, and instructions to gather more classified information. Upon returning to the United States, Campbellis contacted a Greek-American CIA agent to reveal his interactions with the Soviet agent, hoping to secure a position as a CIA spy. However, his story raised suspicions, and experienced senior research analyst Vivian Sakos quickly realized that something was amiss. FBI agents wasted no time in apprehending Campbellis at his home in Munster, Indiana, on August 18th. He was subsequently charged with espionage. In November 1978, Campbellis faced a jury trial and was found guilty of 6 counts of espionage, with each count carrying a 40-year sentence, totaling a staggering 240 years. On December 22, 1978, one day after his birthday, Campbellis was sentenced to a total of 40 years in federal prison. During his time behind bars, Campbellis sought assistance, and his case was referred to a Loyola University law professor. Thanks to legal efforts, his prison sentence was eventually reduced to 18 years. William Campbellis was released on December 16, 1996, after serving 18 years in prison. The William Campbellis case stands as a compelling example of Cold War espionage and the high stakes involved in intelligence operations. Campbellis' journey from a disenchanted CIA employee to an espionage operative and ultimately a convicted felon is a remarkable chapter in the annals of espionage history. His case also highlights the vigilance and dedication of those who work tirelessly to protect national security. The case against William Campbellis unfolded with a compelling narrative that showcased the strength of the prosecution's evidence. Central to this narrative was Campbellis's own confession, a pivotal moment in the courtroom drama. In this confession, he openly admitted to a series of clandestine meetings with a Soviet agent named Michael Zavali, outlining in detail the exchange of a top-secret KH-11 spy satellite manual for a substantial sum of $3,000. This confession served as the anchor of the prosecution's case, forming the basis for the charges brought against him. To fortify this confession and paint a complete picture for the jury, the prosecution embarked on a journey through Campbellis' past. They uncovered his employment history with the CIA, revealing that he had worked as a watch officer in the Operations Center Watch Office in Langley, Virginia, starting in March 1977. This position granted him access to highly sensitive information, including the elusive KH-11 manual, classified as top secret. This revelation underscored the significance of the document he had sold to the Soviets. The courtroom narrative continued to unfold as it became apparent that copy 155 of the KH-11 manual, the very document at the heart of the espionage charges, had been available at Campbellis' workstation in the CIA watch office. However, a thorough search of this office following his confession failed to locate this critical piece of evidence. This development further fueled the intrigue surrounding the case. Witness testimonies added depth to the narrative, with one defense witness recalling the presence of a KH-11 document in the watch office after Campbellis had left the CIA. However, it was noted that this document differed from the missing copy mentioned in the indictment, leaving tantalizing questions unanswered. The narrative then journeyed across continents as it delved into Campbellis' travels. Evidence, including airline tickets, his passport, and a stipulation, convincingly demonstrated that he had embarked on a voyage to Athens, Greece in February 1978, consistent with the timeline outlined in his confession. The trial also featured visual elements, with photographs and first-hand accounts corroborating the vivid descriptions of Athens' streets and locales, including Constitution Square, the National Gardens, Sorrento's Pizzeria, and the secret signal site near the Athens Stadium. Expert testimony added an analytical layer to the narrative, with a certified counterintelligence expert shedding light on the mechanics of espionage. The expert explained that the elements of the recruitment process, such as the agreement on an accommodation address, a signal site, and a meeting place, closely paralleled the account provided by Campbellis. The expert's insights also emphasized the implausibility of the Soviets disbursing a significant sum of $3,000 without receiving valuable classified material in return. The climax of this gripping narrative arrived with the revelation of bank records from Campbellis' savings account, serving as an irrefutable piece of evidence. These records corroborated his admission that he had indeed received $3,000 from Michael, adding a final layer of credibility to his confession. In conclusion, the case against William Campbellis unfolded as a meticulously constructed narrative, drawing the jury into a web of espionage, intrigue, and corroborating evidence. Campbellis' confession, the linchpin of the prosecution's case, was artfully supported by a tapestry of facts, testimonies, and expert insights, leaving no doubt about the strength of the evidence presented in the courtroom. The prosecution's compelling narrative led to Campbellis' conviction on charges of espionage, bringing this captivating legal saga to a close. David Henry Barnett. John Henry Barnett, often referred to as simply Henry Barnett, is one of the children of David Henry Barnett, the former CIA officer who was convicted of espionage for the Soviet Union in the 1980s. John Henry Barnett's life was significantly impacted by his father's actions and the subsequent consequences that followed. Born into a family deeply connected to the intelligence world, John Henry Barnett was just a child when his father's espionage activities came to light. His father, David Barnett, had served as a CIA officer and had been involved in selling classified information to the Soviets, compromising the identities of numerous CIA officers and divulging sensitive intelligence data. John Henry Barnett grew up during a tumultuous period, marked by the revelation of his father's betrayal and the legal proceedings that followed. His father's actions had far-reaching consequences, not only for the CIA, but also for the family. The disclosure of his father's espionage activities undoubtedly cast a shadow over their lives and subjected them to public scrutiny. It's essential to recognize that John Henry Barnett and his siblings, Charles and Dorsey, were innocent bystanders in this espionage saga. They were children dealing with the aftermath of their father's actions, which ultimately led to his imprisonment. The events surrounding David Barnett's espionage case disrupted the family's stability and sense of security. While details about John Henry Barnett's life beyond this context are limited in the provided information, it's reasonable to assume that he, like his family, had to navigate the challenges and complexities that arose from his father's actions. The impact of such a high-profile and deeply personal situation on John Henry Barnett's life and well-being is a reminder of how espionage cases can have profound effects not only on the individuals directly involved, but also on their families and loved ones. Barnett's journey into espionage began in the fall of 1976, several years after he had left the CIA and embarked on a new life in Indonesia. Faced with a failing shrimp factory and an unsuccessful furniture export business, he found himself drowning in debt. Desperation led him to the doorstep of the Soviet cultural attaché in Jakarta, where he made an audacious offer to sell his services to the Soviet Union. His offer was initially met with intrigue, and he was instructed to return. When he did, he encountered a man named Dmitry, who soon became his handler. In a matter of weeks, Barnett had divulged enough sensitive information to earn himself a payment of $25,000 in various denominations. However, this was just the beginning of Barnett's treacherous path. Over the next 3 years, he would engage in a series of meetings with KGB agents, often in secret locations such as the Soviet embassy in Vienna. His espionage activities would reveal to the Soviets not only the identities of numerous CIA officers, but also classified details of an operation known as Habrink, one of the agency's most successful undercover missions against the Russians. Habrink had provided the CIA with a wealth of information about Soviet weaponry, including the SA-2 guidance system and a range of naval assets like submarines and destroyers. Perhaps most critically, it yielded insights into the SAM missile, information that allowed the United States to develop countermeasures that saved the lives of American bomber crews during the Vietnam War. Barnett's espionage disclosures were not limited to operational details. He also exposed the names of Russian agents that the CIA had been hoping to recruit as double agents in Indonesia. This reckless divulgence had the potential to jeopardize the lives of these agents. His role as a spy was far from glamorous. Barnett was tasked with arranging clandestine meetings, using payphone booths at specific locations, and employing covert communication methods. However, his espionage career eventually crumbled in 1979 when a double agent working for the CIA, Colonel Vladimir Mikhailovich Piguzov, provided information that led to Barnett's identification as a spy. Barnett's arrest and subsequent guilty plea to espionage charges marked a historic moment, as he became the first CIA officer to face such charges. His actions had not only compromised national security, but had also exposed the workings of the intelligence community in the face of betrayal. The intricate web of espionage spun by David Henry Barnett serves as a stark reminder of the high-stakes world of intelligence operations, where loyalty and betrayal often walk a fine line. It is a tale that underscores the enduring commitment of intelligence agencies to safeguard their secrets and protect national interests, even when faced with the actions of a traitor. Jerry Chun Shing Li. The case of Jerry Chun Shing Li is a complex and intriguing tale of espionage, betrayal, and the shadowy world of intelligence agencies. Jerry Chun Shing Li, a former CIA officer, was sentenced to 19 years in prison for his role in conspiring with Chinese intelligence agents, a case that shed light on the mysterious unraveling of the CIA's informant network in China. Li's journey through this legal ordeal began with his guilty plea in May, admitting to his involvement with Chinese intelligence agents, starting in 2010, after he left the CIA. The prosecution presented a compelling narrative supported by a substantial financial paper trail, revealing that Li had received over $840,000 for his espionage activities. The backdrop of this case is notable. Li, an Army veteran, had worked for the CIA from 1994 to 2007, including assignments in China. Following his resignation, he formed a tobacco company in Hong Kong, and it was here that his dealings with Chinese intelligence agents began. These agents, belonging to China's Ministry of State Security, offered him financial incentives and pledged to protect him for life. What added to the intrigue was Li's attempt to rejoin the CIA while he was already engaged with Chinese intelligence. During this period, he repeatedly misled American officials in interviews about his dealings with Chinese intelligence officers and the source of his income. The case intersected with a tumultuous period for the CIA, as between 2010 and 2012, dozens of the agency's informants in China mysteriously vanished. This triggered internal debates about how Chinese intelligence had identified these informants. Li became a prime suspect, and FBI agents investigated his possible involvement. However, the FBI chose not to arrest Li in the United States in 2013, despite finding classified information in his luggage, as they aimed to gather more intelligence about the disappearing CIA informants in China. Even after his eventual arrest in 2018, the FBI couldn't definitively establish whether Li had played a role in the disclosures to Chinese intelligence operatives. Li's plea agreement led to a relatively lighter sentence recommendation by prosecutors, but they argued that even if he hadn't provided information to Chinese intelligence officers, the mere fact that he shared knowledge of American intelligence work with Chinese agents could have a chilling effect on the CIA's efforts to recruit sources. Ultimately, the sentence handed down to Chun Shing Li was 19 years in prison. This case is part of a broader pattern where American intelligence workers have received lengthy prison terms for espionage connected to China. Judge T.S. Ellis III, presiding over the case, emphasized the necessity of such sentences to deter others from compromising American intelligence. Li's case remains a compelling chapter in the annals of espionage, highlighting the gravity of betraying one's country and the challenges of unraveling complex espionage networks. Kevin Patrick Mallerie. Kevin Mallerie, a former CIA officer, was found guilty of spying for China. He sold secret U.S. information to Chinese agents for $25,000 during trips to Shanghai in 2017. Despite his background in the military and government, he betrayed his country. The espionage charges against Mallerie revolve around his clandestine dealings with Chinese intelligence agents. In 2017, during trips to Shanghai, he sold classified U.S. defense information to a Chinese intelligence agent in exchange for $25,000. His messages to the Chinese agent, where he callously stated, "Your object is to gain information, and my object is to be paid," underscore the mercenary nature of his actions. Mallerie's background adds a layer of complexity to his case. His career spanned military service, employment as a special agent for the State Department Diplomatic Security Service, and covert work as a case officer for the CIA. With access to sensitive national security and defense information, including the identities of covert CIA officers and intelligence collection methods, Mallerie had a profound responsibility to protect U.S. interests. Upon returning to the United States, he initially cooperated with law enforcement, revealing his encounters with Chinese intelligence officers. However, subsequent searches of his devices and home uncovered a troubling cache of classified documents and espionage-related paraphernalia, including wigs, fake mustaches, and makeup. Mallerie's espionage activities, resulting in his conviction under the Espionage Act, carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. His case aligns with an alarming trend of former U.S. intelligence officers being targeted by foreign adversaries, highlighting the critical need for vigilance and unwavering loyalty within the intelligence community. Ultimately, the espionage committed by Kevin Mallerie underscores the enduring threat posed by espionage and the unwavering commitment of U.S. authorities to protect national security interests, even when it means prosecuting one of their own. If you love to watch interesting stories like this, click on the video shown on your screen to continue exploring the intriguing world of crime.